Global Tel Link, you have a prepaid call from
3.
an inmate at the Salinas Valley State Prison, Soledad, California. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded. To accept this call, say or dial 5 now. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Lazor. I did have a couple questions, but I didn't know if you want to go first.
Go ahead. Good hearing your voice, and it's been a few days, so you go for it, whatever you got to say.
Very good, very good. Good to hear your voice, too. So I spoke to Carol. She cares about you a great deal, and I think she wants to write maybe the governor and a few other folks on your behalf. She asked me, there's something very specific she wanted me to ask you, something about an application for commutation or maybe a pardon. Have you put in a pardon or an application for commutation with the governor of California?
I have. Talking about Carol Asher?
Yes, Carol Asher. Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, wonderful lady. I just love her so much. I can't even say how.
Me too.
And she did so much for Jack McGlam for so many years. Yeah, I put in a petition about 2 years ago the last time, and I've heard guys as of yesterday and the day before, because I talk to people about this all the time. Somebody told me his was put in about a year ago and he had it acted on. He said another guy 5 years ago put one in and it was just acted on. And somebody else said 2 years ago he put one in and it was recently acted on. And what they're acting on, first of all, the governor has no obligation in California to even respond to those. So they usually don't, because over the years I put in one every few years and just never got an answer, ever once. Now, they do respond to letters from people from the outside, so if she wants to put in some kind of request for that, that would be fine with me. If anybody does, I think they might get a letter saying I have to do it myself, but I'm not sure of that. So I do absolutely encourage Carol and you guys and anybody else who wants to do that to put them in. And even if they write back saying I must do it myself, that's all good, because it brings my name before them, it brings their attention to my case. And I will put in another one. I will put in another one, too.
Okay, and Free, I think she called the governor's office, and I think the lady that answered used the specific phrase, application of commutation, or there may be another type. But does that phrase ring a bell,
yeah.
Application of commutation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are three different types, and they now use the same form for each one, because over the years they've changed up on this. But right now they use the same form for each one. There's commutation, there's pardon, and there's clemency.
Okay.
So they're actually a little bit, each of them is a little bit different, even though sometimes they'll use some of the names generically, like they'll say give him clemency, and they'll be talking about do it through an application for a pardon or do it through an application for whatever the other thing was. So, but they are three distinctly different things, and I don't think it hurts if somebody asks for the wrong thing, but it would be good if she knew for sure, if she did just a little bit of research to see what they say the different things are for, and then do the one that fits my situation the closest, which is actual innocence. I definitely don't think it would be effective and might be counterproductive if people were to say I've rehabilitated, because I had nothing to rehabilitate from in the first place, and also because even though I've been a model prisoner for over 30 years, for sure, I wouldn't say I was a model prisoner my first few years in prison, because it's just the shock and everything, and the cops doing the horrid things they would do. I would, step right up, and I wouldn't do anything ever violent or even aggressive, but I would, sometimes get in their face about their abusiveness and bullying and brutality on other people. Well, I quit doing that over 30 years ago, even though through much of the last, right up until recently, I still will intervene if I see them doing something really bad, but I'll do it in a different way. I'll just do it through paperwork or something like that. But
okay.
Because of what the record shows, though, the false 115s, I wouldn't want somebody to say, I'm a model prisoner in terms of, and just leave it at that without explaining, and have them look at the record and say, well, this is ridiculous, and they'll just throw it out summarily without even looking at anything else it has to say. Now, if they want to say I'm a model prisoner but CDC writes false rule violation reports that make it look like I'm not. I'm all for that, absolutely, but they need that little explanation if they say that. But what I really want to focus on more than that is actual innocence, and the actual innocence is sustained by the fact that I've proven that every single piece of evidence, bar none, every single piece of evidence that was significant in my convict has been proven, which I've shown on that 3552, to have been planted, destroyed, altered, etc., etc. And even if every one of them hadn't been proven, when you prove like 80% of it, I think they should, come to the conclusion that the rest was probably falsified also. But I actually have proven 100% of everything that was used. It was a significant piece of evidence that they planted, altered, destroyed, etc., manufactured out of thin air, fabricated, etc. So that's our focus as far as the way I look at this thing. And let's see, there's one other thing I was going to say. Oh, and also, there's also another factor, and that is that, hold on.
Okay.
There's another factor, and that is about the parole situation, about me being kept so many years beyond my parole release date, which has been...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It's been not only an abuse of discretion, but the parole board doesn't have discretion to do a lot of what they've been doing to me. So it's both an abuse of discretion and abuse beyond their discretion. So those would be our several main points of focus. One, actual innocence, proven by the, what I've shown at the 3552, and anybody can download that from my website or refer to it or whatever. The second thing is the parole situation, and the third thing is falsified rule violation reports, and in contrast, my actual model prisoner behavior, and even going the extra mile that most prisoners that are considered model prisoners don't do, like saving that one prisoner's life, Chris James. So
okay.
Those are three points of focus, the way that I see it. Okay.
Very good.
Let's see.
I did have something to share with you, but I don't want to interrupt your train of thought.
You go ahead.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Eddie Miller is a popular radio talk show host that I'm going to be invited to be on his show this Saturday at 4 o'clock. He's 71 years old. He was in Vietnam, a Vietnam veteran, and he runs marathons at 71 years old. He runs the New York Marathon. Kind of a unique individual. Anyway, the purpose of the show, they're going to have the parents of a man on there, 22-year-old boy named Jacob Scott Goodwin. I don't know if you remember Charlottesville, Virginia. James Alex Fields drove a car into a group of people and killed a girl named Heather Heyer. That was the same day.
I know all about it.
Okay, that was the same day that.
I know about it.
Okay, and so that was it. Jacob Scott Goodwin did not know that man. He wasn't associated with that man, but he was there that day. And anyway, he got into an altercation with a black man by the name of DeAndre Harris. It lasted about 30 seconds, maybe less than 30 seconds. And Jacob Scott Goodwin, for what amounts to a street fight, and DeAndre Harris, who is the black guy, he actually swung a flashlight at an older man named Harold Cruz at his head, trying to take away his rebel flag. Okay, so anyway, Jacob Scott Goodwin intervened for less than 30 seconds, and and he's never had a criminal record, but he does have the belief of, pride in your heritage. He doesn't hate black people, but he's just proud to be white. Well, anyway, because he believes like that, he got 8 years in prison. So just keep that in mind. Now, another guy named Husan Stinney in Charlottesville, Virginia, killed a guy and got charged with second-degree murder, and guess how much time he got? 8 years in prison for second-degree murder. So you have a white dude who you have a white guy who gets into a street fight, nobody's permanently hurt, 8 years in prison. A black dude kills a guy in second-degree murder, 8 years in prison. And I'm going to bring up your case on the radio this Saturday and say that you shot somebody in self-defense in your own home, and the man was coming at you with a meat cleaver, and you've been sitting in prison for 36 years on the same charge as Husan Stinney. I don't know if you got his article. I think I mailed it to you. I hope you got a chance to read it. If you didn't, I'll mail it again. But it's the same charge. Husan Stinney got second-degree murder. You got second-degree murder. He gets 8 years in prison. You're still in prison after 36 years.
and mine, as we know, was framed anyway.
Yes.
On top of that. So
Yes.
I recognize the disparity. I recognize how screwed up the system is. Okay, you're the first one to ask. Excuse me. More interference.
Did you get the article? Did you get the Husan Steny article? Just curious.
The article I got from you, the only one I've gotten recently, is the 4-page document about your 8-minute talk to the church about Ken Hovind, David Hinkson, Jeffrey Winehouse, and Schaefer Cox.
I'm gonna mail you the Husan Steny article.
Okay, yeah. If you sent it already, it's probably in the mailroom and it'll get to me. But if you want to, just to be sure,
okay.
The mailroom's been doing some fishy things with some of the mail lately. Mostly it's been like long delays, but I think I'm missing a piece or two that I've expected that may never arrive to me. So if you want to do that, that's fine. I wanted to comment on that article I just mentioned. Was so well done. I could hardly believe it. What the amount of ground you covered and the priority things, and I was actually stunned by some of the details of some of those people. I knew about, of course, I know about Schaefer from you. I knew about David Hinkson before. We talked about that. I've known of Kent Hovind. Jeffrey Winehouse, I don't believe I did know about before. But anyway, the way you put that together in the short time you had to deliver that message was just the best I've ever seen.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that, Free. I had 8 minutes, and the pastor told me not to go over 8 minutes, so I had to cram in as much as I could.
I know what that's like. I do Toastmasters.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Okay. He signed up, so... All right. So I got like 4 minutes. So, this will probably cut us off by then anyway. Okay, so... let's see what else I was going to say. I've actually forgotten.
Well, I know you were...
Thanks, Aaron.
Yep. Go ahead, Free. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Aaron, if she's listening. If Aaron's listening, or if you can pass a message for the little postcard I got again from her. Those are always uplifting and heartfelt, and so I always appreciate those. You had something written on the back page of that 8-minute talk. You had a set of 4 numbers. Were those important, or was that just scrap? I didn't know if that accidentally got sent. That
was accidentally. Yeah, don't worry about those extra numbers. That's nothing. I just had some extra printouts, and Erin is here, and we praise God that she sends out those encouraging postcards. So.
Yeah. I just wanted to let her know I really appreciate that. Let me look at what we've got here. Let me go back to the governor's thing for a minute and try to pick up my thought on what it was that I lost as we were talking. Phone calls will help a lot because I think the governor's office is inundated with a lot of petitions right now for pardon, clemency, and whatever the other thing was. And the reason why is because he has or granted clemency and whatever the other thing is. He's granted that to something like 600 and some people. This is unprecedented in California history and probably in the history of any other state in the nation. That many people. He's going out of office for the last time in a month. So if we're going to do something, it would be good to do it absolutely right now, immediately, not even another day or two of delay, and try to get something into him. If there's any further questions about the details, make those phone calls, and they should be able to give the details. And the petition itself, the application, is available online from the governor's office, and they can get the website easily by contacting the governor. So it's very important to do this now. It might get blessed with answers to prayer if some people put them in and they're flooded with a handful of them, and they look back and see I've had one in there for a few years of my own. And if they check up on any of the information that I put in there, what I did is I focused on the...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
And I referred them to the 3552 because before, in previous ones, I sent them the whole 3552, which, as you know, is 1 1/4 inch thick, and they probably don't appreciate that much paperwork. They probably want to throw that in the trash. So I referred it so they could go to the website. I don't know if that's the best approach. Like everybody else, I'm just trying to figure out the best way to do these things. So anyway, we got, 30 seconds left?
You have 30 seconds remaining.
go ahead and close it up if you wish.
Well,
We love you.
yeah, we love you, Free, and we're gonna. I'm gonna get this message
Thank you, Aaron.
We're gonna get this back to Carol because she wanted that question answered, and we're gonna try to get as many people right. The governor. I know Ken Massat is doing his very, very best to make noise about your case, and we're praying that God work a miracle. Yep. You know,
Thank you. Tell him to act now. Act now is the key because he's going out of office in just a.
Okay, we lost Free. 36 years in prison, and it was a self-defense shooting in his own home. The guy was coming at him with a meat cleaver. He gets 36 years for second-degree murder. If you compare that with Husan Stinney, a black man in Charlottesville, Virginia, he also got convicted of second-degree murder, and he gets 8 years in prison. And then you compare that with Jacob Scott Goodwin, who got into a street fight with DeAndre Harris, and he gets 8 years in prison, and nobody was permanently hurt. I mean, there's something terribly wrong with our judicial system. Hope you guys are waking up to the severe tyranny and missentencing and bias in our current court system.